Hi, I'm Sunny. In this practice, we explore Qigong and Tai Chi as one continuous path, from stillness into movement. If you're new to Qigong or Tai Chi, this is a great practice to follow along with and simply experience. We'll begin with a gentle warm-up, then move into Yin-Yang Qigong, followed by Tai Chi Fundamentals and a form. Throughout the session, we emphasize key principles such as Zhong, relaxation, Zhong, centered stillness, body mechanics like advance and retreat, the 4 directions of energy, and many others. By the end of it, you will notice greater relaxation in the body, improved balance and coordination, and a calmer, more centered mind. When you're ready, find a comfortable space and let's begin. So we're going to begin with our loosening drills. Now, during the loosening drills, things to be mindful of is your posture, your breath, and just allowing yourself to relax deeper into the experience of the movement. So for the posture, we use the intention of posture finds the horizon. When we do this, we want to stand as if we're looking out to the horizon, but we can relax our gaze into our space. And so this gets us into our space from our top-down perspective. Now from that, we just want our breath to flow naturally in through the nose, out through the mouth, and relax into the experience of the body so we can start to feel our bottoms-up perspective, hopefully meeting in the middle as we progress through our practice. So as we get into our space, we can stand here, take a few grounding breaths, in through the nose, out through the nose or mouth. Lining all these things up. And you're welcome to follow along as we go through some of our loosening exercises. So first, ankle rockers. Lifting and lowering. Lift the toes, lift the heels. Notice the connections from the ground up. Work from your heels up to the knees, to the hips, sacrum tailbone area, and then all the way up to the crown of the head. Feel a gentle lift from the crown of the head, connecting to the Tai Chi line, which extends out from the spine, up from the crown of the head, helping us find center. As we progress through these movements, we're going to work up the chain. And as we work up the chain, we want to still remember the previous movement and draw that experience with us. So relax, bring your feet in a little closer together, arms out onto the tops of the legs. Support yourself as much as you feel you need to. So you can kind of feel the strength of the arms transmitting into the legs, feel the strength of the torso, right? Creating your shape. And then we're just gonna simply lift and lower. Feel your knees working. Feel the toes continuing to reach, the heels grounding, but now we're not lifting them off the ground. We're trying to keep a sense of our whole foot firmly on the ground, feeling our feet as a firm base for our movement. And it's most important, just relax. Let the movement flow naturally and organically. Now, coming up the chain, step a little bit wider. Now we want to keep some softness at the ankles and knees and learn to relax into our stance. This is sitting but not sitting. We want to sit onto our horse, okay? Arms are out. Now turning from fingertips to fingertips, finding our center line with our nose and our toes, helping us find that forward direction. So we want to learn to turn from our waist, turn from our middle, so we can use our arms to help that. So feel yourself turn from your fingertips and feel that come up the chain vertically from the ground. and relax. Back to center. Rolling the shoulders. Lifting the shoulders up and relaxing them down. Let the breath continue to flow naturally. In these loosening drills, the breath flows rhythmically alongside the movements, but not necessarily coordinated with any specific phase. These loosening movements help us just build up the experience, the muscle memory of the body, loosen up our joints, help us ground into simple movement, so that as we move into the rest of our practice, we're sort of primed for the next experience. Switching directions. With rolling the shoulders, it's quite common for the breath to naturally begin to align. And this is a quality we can look at as we inhale as we rise, exhale as we lower. And switching directions. So lift from the crown of the head and release the shoulders, rolling them down and back. Bring some awareness down to the feet, remembering those movements that built us all the way up into this rolling of the shoulders. And come to a rest. Arms out, circling the arms. Elbows are heavy, shoulders sinking. We want to feel a response in the whole body. So it feels as if the body is behind the palms. Find your wrists, palms, fingers. Switch directions. As we come to the end of our loosening drills, our focus comes out to the hands more. We take this focus into the rest of our Qigong. Circling the wrists. The characteristic of Qigong is the moving of the arms around the body as we breathe, bringing more intention to how we move around our space. Switch directions. And relax. Shake it out. Nice big grounding breath. Take a moment, stand in Wuji. Once again, notice your posture finds the horizon. Relaxing into your space, let the breath flow naturally. And then observe from the ground up. Find a little bit more awareness of your ankles, knees, hips. The waist, its ability to turn with the shoulders, just finding a little bit more movement within your space. Now we're going to go into our Yin-Yang Qigong, which is one of the fundamental and first Qigongs that we introduced within our community. The Yin-Yang Qigong is great for getting into your body and spatial awareness while connecting to core Qigong principles. So the core Qigong principles we want to take into this practice today are those of Zhong and Zhong, our Yin-Yang harmony, and our three external harmonies. Zhong means relax, let go, release into your space. Zhong is full body awareness. So Zhong and Zhong work together. We want an awareness of our full body as we go through these movements, but we want to relax and move from center. We also have our Yin-Yang harmony concepts. The front informs the back informs the front, the left informs the right, the top informs the bottom, etc., etc. And then our three external harmonies concept, hands and feet, elbows and knees, shoulders and hips, are coordination for the limbs, helping us overlap the experience of the arms and the legs more intentionally just like when we do patterning exercises like walking or running that coordinate the movements of the arms and the legs. So let's go ahead and join it together. We're going to begin with 3 grounding breaths. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Coordinating the inhalation as we rise, the exhalation as we lower. Breathing in through the nose, out through the mouth, coming to a rest in Wuji. Wuji is a stance that's shared by Tai Chi and Qigong. We can relate to it slightly differently depending on what we're practicing. In Qigong, we want to just think of Zhong and Zhong, just releasing into our space, relaxing, not really having any intention just yet. First posture is monkey holds the cauldron. Arms reach below the waist, bringing a little crescent into the arms. Feeling as if you're holding a cauldron and pulling that back towards the waist so you feel a response in your hips, your belly, your pelvis, giving you more of a sense of your middle. And just relax and breathe. We still want to connect to those concepts of posture finds the horizon. Feeling from the feet up, looking for awareness at the ankles, the knees, hips and waist. This position can help us feel a more fullness, like that sense of Zhong getting larger so that we have more space to relax into. And then slowly, with intention, raising the arms up. And this is called post position, or sometimes embracing the tree. It has different names and different styles. But we want to feel the shape of the arms, find our hands, our elbows, or shoulders. Feel them resting firmly over the support of the lower body. Now, the first concept we're going to explore within the Yin-Yang Qigong is that of Kai and He, open and close. So we're going to inhale, open. Exhale, close. Inhaling, opening. Exhaling, closing. Bring some intention to the hands, the wrists, fingers, expressing this movement out at the edges. And as with all Qigong movements, the rhythm is yours, so it follows your breath. So as soon as you feel comfortable with the movement, you can let it flow according to that rhythm. Inhaling as you open, exhaling as you close. Doesn't have to follow mine exactly. Open to the east and west, feeling a sense of width, breadth coming into your shape, and then closing into the side body. Now, the next concept we explore is separating yin and yang. So we inhale and bring the arms up a little higher. What are we separating from yin and yang? The bottom half from the top half, the left from the right, the front from the back, the inside from the outside. Just getting more clarity in our space. Now within the Yin-Yang Qigong, there's no prescribed number of repetitions. You can do any of these movements for any number of repetitions that you like. Now the next concept is changing yin and yang, turning the wheel, opening. So what are we changing? We're changing from one side to the other while still separating left and right, top and bottom, front to back. We can also observe a concept that'll fare us well when we get into our Tai Chi, that of the yin and yang hands. So we notice that one hand stays still relative to the other hand as it moves across. So one hand becomes our yin hand, the anchoring hand. On the other hand, the yang hand, the action hand, or the active hand. So feel that relationship. One hand anchoring as you change and separate. And the next concept is swirling. We're going through the phases of the yin-yang symbol. So the arm comes up and then swirls from side to side in a circular motion. There's still an anchoring hand, and an action hand. There's still that concept of changing and separating, open and close. And now closing into our grounding circles, coming back to these beginning circles. The hands releasing those different jobs of anchoring or being the action hand. Now they're sharing the job, just relaxing back to center. No intention of pulling or pressing, pushing or lifting. Just open and close. And settling back down to Wuji. Try to stay soft at the joints in the lower body. Allow the breath to return to a normal rhythm. Feel free to fidget if you like. Our classical closing to the Yin-Yang Qigong is a little bit of bouncing and shaking. So from the ground up, try to work from the ankles, knees, hips. Let the breath flow, nice and relaxed. Try to stay vertical as you're doing this. Try not to bounce around too much. A little bit is okay, but we want to keep this coming up from the ground, nice and relaxed. And then whenever you're ready, slowly stop bouncing. Just notice the response from the joints. And raise the arms back up to post position. We just want to note how this posture feels relative to when we started. Just checking into our posture finds the horizon, getting the information coming up from the feet. Just relaxing into this posture a little bit differently now that we've gone through the Yin-Yang Qigong first. And release. And shake it out. And intentionally walk your space, feeling your feet, your ankles, right? Work that from the ground up. Go a few circles one direction and a few circles the other. The Yin-Yang Qigong is really well suited for sort of priming our movement, priming our system to get into our Tai Chi practice. And part of that is this standing. That's going to build the strength from the ground up. You're going to feel it in your feet and you're going to feel your toes grabbing in. And so when we step away from that standing posture, we want to do it with intention so that we take our practice with us right from those very first steps. So we're going to transition into the Tai Chi portion of our practice. Now there's a saying that you can practice Tai Chi like Qigong, but you can't practice Qigong like Tai Chi. And so what does this mean? Well, the method of practicing Tai Chi is something that has been passed along for many generations within lineages, within family styles. So it's something that has a clear methodology. Qigong is working also from another clear methodology, but with different intentions and different purposes. The more you understand Qigong, you realize that the Qigong concepts are what makes something Qigong and how you apply them. They work really well together. So in that spirit, what we're going to start with is Tai Chi standing postures, which are going to be very similar to what we just did in the Yin-Yang Qigong, but we're going to look at them from a different perspective. So let's begin with 3 grounding breaths, letting the breath flow in through the nose, out through the mouth. We're not going to be as connected to it like the Qigong. We're going to keep it flowing, but it's not harmonized with any specific phase of the movement. So as we settle down, come into Wuji. Now, as we settle into our Tai Chi Wuji, we want to look at the concepts of Wuji and Tai Chi within the practice. Wuji is the sense of center, relaxation, softening, letting go. These are all these concepts that are associated with Wuji. We can also connect it with our lower frame sinking down to the ground. Tai Chi is the line coming up our spine, extending from the crown of the head. So if we think of Tai Chi and Wuji as the end of 2 poles, we could think of them as the top of our spine extending out, and then from the bottom of our sacrum tailbone going down into the ground through the feet. And there's our Tai Chi Wuji line. And so we can reach from that into monkey holds the cauldron. And this gives us a sense of our center. And this is our first important principle in Tai Chi, Zhong Ding. This comes from the 13 postures, which identify the 13 energies of Tai Chi, which are universal to all Tai Chi. And so one of the most core aspects of that is Zhong Ding. It's our central equilibrium, like a gyroscope. So as we're here, we're looking to get a sense of center, of moving from our center. And bringing the hands into this space aligns us with those concepts of the yin-yang harmony. The front informs the back, the bottom informs the top, and our 3 harmonies, hands and feet, elbows and knees, shoulders and hips, all orienting around bringing our awareness to our center. Raising the arms up to post position, we want to maintain that sense of center, even though the arms are not at that exact space anymore. Now they're up at the line of the shoulder. We can observe the change to our center and how we're holding our space. Now we also want to observe what's right in front of us. So the crescent of the arms. We can see a gentle crescent in each arm, and we can see a gentle crescent in the tiger's mouth. This gives us a sense of where our body is at relative to itself and the joint position. This is an important concept in Tai Chi, body position and spatial awareness. Body position can be studied by the relative position of the hands to each other, elbows, shoulders, just where you're occupying your space. Spatial awareness is that 4 directions and center concept, knowing our north, our south, our east, and our west. And we can relax. There's a saying, without standing, there is no Tai Chi. And part of the reason for that is we want to align those concepts of Tai Chi Wuji to get into our center, that concept of Zhong. And to further work on that, we're gonna do some really simple Tai Chi loosening drills. So here we wanna connect up that line, down the tailbone to the ground, and hug our center. We release and hug. And holding this for a moment, just taking a moment to feel this position, helps us anchor this a little bit more firmly in our mind. And then we can allow ourselves to just start flowing back and forth. And the head just sort of scans naturally in its space, taking in just what's right in front of you. Ground the heels, bringing us even more into our space. Notice where the arms are making contact with the body. And relax. Now, when you're doing this, hopefully you notice that you're keeping your feet nice and firm on the ground. Once we learn to root our heels and keep our arms finding those spots, we can keep much more even pressure into our feet. And this is important to get that information coming from the ground up, not biasing too much forward or into an edge, so we can keep a really clear awareness of that vertical energy coming up to our middle. So we're gonna move into some Tai Chi fundamental exercises that get us into the first 5 energies of Tai Chi, starting with Zhong, and then we're gonna work into advancing, retreating, turning left and turning right. To do that, we need to learn how to shift, sink, and float. So shift to one side, changing full and empty, so you feel yourself more over this side, and then sink. Shift to the other side, and float up. And sink and float are a bit of an analogy, a bit of a metaphor that you can relate to. And we're keeping ourselves moving east and west. Changing empty, full, and switching directions whenever you feel like it. And then sinking, floating. Sinking from center, floating up from center. Now find empty, full. Now we're gonna work on those basic Tai Chi energies. So we wanna turn the body, advance. Turn the body, advance. And feel the change of empty, full. And that advance comes from Zhong, comes from move from center as center. Trying to maintain also a sense of Tai Chi and Wuji right up and down the middle. And we can go all the way back to the beginning of class, beginning of this session, and find that bottoms up perspective. So we can feel how the legs are helping to make this happen. But we're still doing this from our waist. Turn, advance. Turn, advance. And retreating. Retreat, turn. Retreat, turn. And when the body turns, the gaze turns. When the body turns, the gaze turns. There's a saying, practice as if surrounded by enemies. Basically, it means keep your head on a swivel. Keep aware of where you're at, your immediate space. Stay active in your awareness. And then back to center. And a few grounding breaths. So Tai Chi, regardless of the style you're practicing, comes from the origins of Tai Chi, and that's the 13 postures. These fundamentals help us start to connect to this from the ground up, because the 5 leg methods are very important for how we move our body around. After that, we have the 8 hand methods. These are a slightly different process. They get built by the movement coming up from the ground and then shaped as we progress through that practice. And so we're gonna go now from this first fundamental practice to our Tai Chi form practice, where we're working on the Beijing 24. We split our Tai Chi form practice into 2 areas, Tai Chi Silk Reeling, or Tai Chi Danlian, which is where we take one movement and repeat it over and over again in specific ways, left and right, so that we get a fuller sense of it. It's like pulling thread. Each time we get a repetition, that thread gets thicker, it gets stronger, it gets fuller in our awareness. And then we'll transition into working on the first couple movements of our form. So let's begin into our stance. We're gonna begin with Qi Shou, the first move of the form. Arms raising, bringing awareness to the backs of the arms, then the wrists and hands and fingers, and back down. And we could bring that concept of float and sink. So think of yourself floating up, sinking down through center. Now the 8 energies that come from the arms that I mentioned, we can begin discussing them, but it's also good to know that we want to build up some experience. So the silk reeling movements are almost like Qigong. They allow us to connect to that concept of repetitive motion, building up that experience, building up that energy. And the more of that experience we have, the more we'll be able to observe it and study it, getting deeper into those concepts of ward off, roll back, press and push. So for these movements, we can keep it simple. Just think, float, move from center, Zhong, relax, sink, return to center. Hands and feet, elbows and knees, shoulders and hips. And release. Grounding breath. Next movement, tiger washes face. So hands start to one side. We can connect to that Yin-Yang Qigong. So we've come to one side of the body, and then the arms change to the other side. And then change. And when we bring the analogy, the metaphor of the tiger, we can pull from that a lot of different things. And that's the point. It's how we use and study that metaphor. So tigers pull and they draw across. So feel this is a pulling movement across the body. Don't worry too much about the empty and full. There's lots of ways to make that change. Just focus on what's happening at the hands. Pulling across like a tiger. We also have the tiger's mouth, the thumb and forefinger. So put a little bit more awareness there, coming across. Coming across. And then you're washing your face. So this, around the face. Around the face. When we have animal movements, that's giving us an expression, a feeling. So we want to allow ourselves to get into it, connect to it. So from here, let's go to crane. So crane draws up and across and sinks and floats up and across and sinks. When we think cranes, we think of our backs and our ribs spreading wide. And if we want to create a little balance with the tiger, find your pinky and your ring finger, giving a sense of width to the hand, balancing out the tiger's mouth. Sink, float. Sink, float. And one more. Grounding breath. And last one of our silk reeling movements, raising the hands or playing the peepaw. Rubbing the waist, squeezing center, high and low. Rubbing the waist, float, sink. Float, sink. Find your tiger's mouth. Find your back, bringing those tiger washes face, crane cools wings concepts into it. And one more. And grounding breath. So working through our Tai Chi Silk Reeling allows us to build up some experience in the moves, build symmetry and harmony in their movements since we're doing them left and right, so that when we get into our form practice, we have more material there to work with and study. Okay, we're gonna get into a little bit of form practice. We're gonna be using the Beijing 24. It's the first form we like to introduce into our community because it's a very intentional form. It's really great to work on these Tai Chi principles within that context. So we can begin here in a Tai Chi stance. We're all in one line. Stepping out, allowing our empty full to equalize. Our first movement, raising hands just from this, like in the silk reeling. Now the hands go high and low, and we're going to change empty full by retreating and turning the body. We open the stance and advance, turn, and settle into pung or ward off. And if I were to face this direction with my ward off, you would see that it's like I have a shield right here. If something was coming at me, I could stop it with this shield. This is how we first want to interact with the concept of ward off, because that's exactly what it's like. Having a shield, if the waves were coming at me, they would break around my shape. And so from this perspective, you can see the intention that we bring into that. First, connecting to the 5 leg methods. Zhong at the waist, retreating and turning, advancing and turning to express ward off. And so this ward off position, if you find this shape, we can look and orient just like we did in our standing meditation. The top arm should be at the line of the shoulders. And instead of being over here, like in standing meditation, it's actually more wrapped towards the center. So you should feel your sternum being covered by this front arm. The shoulder has also come forward. So if I did bring it, I could come into standing meditation position here, post position. But this arm is down here at the bottom. So my shoulders are squaring forward. We don't want to be off to the side. That's why we get our advance and turn to come into position. And ward off is exactly what it sounds like. It's like we have a shield right here, like a Viking or a Spartan or an Amazon warrior, right? Boom, the shield out there. And this hand is grounding us, creating an anchor to our movement. So once again from this side, we float and sink. Turn the body. Sink to begin the movement, advance, turn, ward off. And you can check your posture by just simply bouncing. Bounce up and down. And if you feel even, nice and relaxed, just like we did in the Yin-Yang Qigong, well, then you got good posture. If you start bouncing and you're all over the place, well, then you'll probably self-adjust. So it's a really good way to check your posture naturally. Just settle into a standing posture and bounce a little bit. And then when you're ready, and step and grounding breath. So as we're working through the practice of the form, there is a bit of an onboarding phase. We got to allow ourselves to learn the basic movements. And we can learn them in different ways. We can remember the names of the moves, raising hands or Qisho, transitioning to embracing the crescent moons, into ward off, or also called wild horse parts its mane. We could also remember the core energies that are associated with these movements over time. Floating and sinking, Zhong, turning the body, advancing, turning, warding off. And so as you're able to remember those concepts, they will help anchor the movement as well. But one of our core concepts that we can draw all the way from the beginning of class is Zhong and Zhong. Releasing into our whole movement, feeling relaxed, moving from center. All these concepts are there just simply as tools to help us get into our movement and to let it flow. So regardless of style, these concepts are there for us to study and apply in our movement. If you'd like to continue exploring, we've designed a 7-day Qigong and Tai Chi challenge to support your daily routine, guiding you step by step through gentle, mindful practice. It's free to access for 7 days, giving you the chance to experience how these practices can support you. Check the link below.